Welcome to the Movie Business Podcast, picking up where Movie Business Book left off. I'm Jason Squire, hosting a wide range of industry talent and executives to answer fundamental questions about the business today. Here we go. And today we turn to the secrets of directing with Doug Liman, an award-winning director and producer with credits including Swingers, Go, The Bourne Identity, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Jumper, Fair Game, Live, Die, Repeat, also known as Edge of Tomorrow. Among his awards are the MTV Movie Award, the European Film Award, the Independent Spirit Award, and the Hugo Award. Doug has also produced hit television series including The O.C., Covert Affairs, and Suits. He is politically active, continuing some of the work of his father, Arthur Liman. Welcome, Doug.
Hi. Nice to talk to you again. I don't really think of myself as an award-winning filmmaker. The award I get is audiences watching my films, you know.
So can we jump right in and ask, what are the secrets of directing?
When I talk to aspiring directors, you know, I often point out that there's two components to directing. There's sort of the con artist skill set that's required to get the job in the first place, right? Especially if you haven't done it before, you have to convince somebody you can do it. And you don't have any facts to support that because you haven't done it before. Mm-hmm. You know, when I was doing the Bourne Identity, which was, you know, I'd done two small independent movies and then the Bourne Identity, and Stacey Snider, who was running Universal, was at some point of exasperation on her part that I'm sure was entirely earned or caused by my behavior, said to me, you know, in a moment of exasperation, this isn't your $50 million film school. Mm-hmm. And I was too insecure at the time, but afterwards I have reflected back on that and I was like, it is my $50 million film school, because what in my life has convinced any of you that I can do this, because I've never done it before? Obviously, I got to figure it out while I'm doing it. Like I've told you, that's where the con artist comes in. I've told you I know what I'm doing, but the reality is I'm going to have to figure it out while I'm doing it. I guess a lot of tech startups, you know, earn that or work that way, and, you know, fake it till you make it. And, you know, sometimes people get into trouble, like Elizabeth Holmes, and sometimes they achieve huge success. So there's the act of getting the job, you know, because other art forms, like you want to write a screenplay, write a book, do a painting, you just do it. But you can't make a movie unless someone writes a big check for you to do it. So that's where the con artist comes in. Mm-hmm. Then there's the second part, which is actually making the movie, where there's still a little bit of con artist in the mix, because you got to convince actors to be in the movie and you got to convince crew to work on the movie. Again, presumably you haven't done it before. And then there's the actual act of making the movie. Like once you've gotten all the tools that you need, there's what it takes to actually direct a movie. And, you know, I come to that last just because you don't even have the opportunity to see if you have what it takes to actually direct a movie until you've made it through these other gauntlets. Mm-hmm. There is no secret of directing. And in fact, you know, directors don't really get to ever meet other directors. So I don't even necessarily get to see what I might have in common with other filmmakers and therefore what might be, you know, considered like a useful skill set or a secret of trick of the trade. We all have our little things we do to try to get a performance out of somebody. You know, and then people make different kinds of movies. I make movies with anti-heroes. Like I don't really know how to do a character that's like just truly heroic. There's other filmmakers who are really great at just straight heroes. Mm-hmm. But for me, I'm always looking for honesty in the story, in the movie itself, and the performances. You know, so I think most of my skill and the skill of other filmmakers is in the first part, which is convincing everybody to let you make the movie in the first place, and convincing really skilled artisans to do it with you. Mm-hmm. It's not one person alone making a movie, it's a whole team. And the better the team, the better the movie. So, I really, you can't belittle the first thing of being able to convince people to make the movie and be part of it.
Right.
You know, it doesn't matter how good a director you are. If you don't have a great actor, you're not going to get a great performance.
Mm-hmm.
I think Hitchcock said that casting was 90% of the work. I may have that wrong, but it's definitely, whoever said it, they were right. So that to me is the main secret of directing is being able to, you know, if you can only have one skill, it should be the skill of being able to convince people of things.
Very good. So this dovetails to another question. Can you share some of the lessons learned throughout your career?
Lessons learned. It's all been a learning process. So I guess the main lesson that I've learned is to pay attention to the lessons. You know, I'm not necessarily the most reflective person, but when I finish a movie, I do reflect on what worked and what didn't work, so I can bring that with me to the next process, to the next film or TV show. Mm-hmm. But in general, I'm not a reflective person, so I'm not sure that I've actually learned any lessons. I've benefited from people around me who are really smart. And so I don't know if I've learned the lesson, but they've been teaching them. For instance, my first editor, Steve Marioni, who I hired when he was, you know, at UC Santa Cruz, and went on to win the Academy Award, get nominated for Academy Awards. But back when he was just someone in film school, and I was, you know, just out of film school at this point, we were making Swingers, and I was explaining to him my intention for a scene I had shot. And he said, I don't care what your intention is or was. I'm going to edit what you actually shot, not what you intended to shoot. And I'm going to make you look really good by just editing what you shot, because then it will look like that's what you intended to shoot. Versus if I try to edit your intention and what you shot doesn't match your intention, then you'll look like an inferior filmmaker. So that's Swingers was a long time ago, and like those words stuck with me. And Steve is, you know, and I continue to work together. That's like a lesson that I try to share with when I work with a new editor to really give them carte blanche. And I just, like, every long camera shot I've ever done that took me forever to do, Steve Marioni's cut it up into pieces. You know, and it's like, because he's like, this is what serves the movie best, not your ego.
Well, very good. And, you know, Swingers is one of my favorites. It's truly taking the test of time. It's really, it just continues to sing and move people, as is the case with many of your other movies. Let me turn to another question about your advice. So what advice do you have for someone who wants to direct?
The audience is constantly evolving. So the same thing that worked yesterday isn't going to work tomorrow. So the system needs fresh blood. So, yeah, there's a little bit of a sense of it being a club. If you've already made successful movies, obviously it's easier than if you when you're starting out in terms of getting your next job. But when you think long term and you look at a movie like Swingers, that movie needed to be made by somebody in their 20s who was an outsider to the business.
Right.
Swingers made by Rob Marshall, whoever was doing comedies back then, wouldn't have been as good as the movie that got made because we were all fresh.
Now, can I turn to another question? In terms of your producing career as well, what impact does producing have on directing? You know, I guess we separate producing from exclusively producing a project on one hand, and on the other hand, producing a project you're directing. Or what are the differences? You
know, I'm almost exclusively produced in television, not in film. It's been a while since I've produced a film that I didn't direct.
Right.
TV, I've done a ton of producing where I haven't been directing. And it's challenging for me to be on the set as a producer because I end up, you know, stepping on the director's toes. And at some point have to leave the set because I'm crossing lines. Just because, like, there's like a protocol as a producer. Like, you're not supposed to give acting direction to the actors. You give it to the director, and then the director gives it to the actors. But you can imagine, like, there's time's ticking on the set, and I give a note to the director, and then I just watch the director do the exact same note to the actors, and I'm like, well, that was a waste of time. So at a certain point, I'd be like, well, I might as well just give it directly to the actors. And then it's like, okay, shoot, I'm crossing a line now, and I know I'm trying to be efficient, but like, I have to leave the set. And in fact, my most successful film producing I ever did was on a film called Kissing Jessica Stein. Mm-hmm. And it was because I was directing Bourne Identity at the same time, so I wasn't going to be available to be on the set. So all of my work with Charles Wormfeld, who directed it, happened in prep. None of it happened on the set. It all happened in prep. So those scenarios that I described to you where I'm like, suddenly I'm talking to the actors, those are scenes that played out on the set of movies or TV shows that we're shooting. Mm-hmm. But with Kissing Jessica Stein and Charles Wormfeld, I wasn't going to be able to be on set. So we did all of our work, just the two of us, in prep. And then I didn't show up to the set once. And I'm incredibly proud of the movie. And one of you asked about lessons learned. I mean, I guess one of the lessons learned from that was that movies really are made in prep. Like, by the time you get to the set, a lot of decisions have already been made that cannot be undone. And so I found that I can be most effective as a producer in prep while there's time for a director to react to my input.
Well, that is a good lesson. Let me turn to the question, what is your prognosis for the business? It's a fascinating time. What do you think is going to happen?
What's going to happen? Well, we've been making movies for, 100 years.
Right.
I don't see that changing.
Right.
The only thing that seems to have shifted during my career is that the ability to watch movies outside of a movie theater, there's right. People have bigger screens at home and they have their phones with them. And I'm certainly very happy that the act of going to movie theaters didn't die with the pandemic, that it is something that communal experience of being in a movie theater is still something that we humans seem to still enjoy. Right. If we were going to discover that humans don't need a movie theater and they'll watch a movie at home, like, that would have happened.
Happened already, right.
It would have already happened. It would have happened in a couple of years, but they've come back to the theaters, and it's not just teenagers trying to get out and see their friends, which was one of the drivers of why I always thought movie theaters would always survive, is because if you're a teenager, you don't want to watch a movie at home with your parents. Like, part of going to the theater is to go see your friends. Right. But it's not just teenagers going to movie theaters. So I'm very happy that the experience I've had of making a movie and then having it play in movie theaters, and one of my favorite things to do is to just sneak in, buy a ticket to a movie I've made and just go sit in an audience with regular people of no idea, because no one knows what I look like. So, I get to just sit in a movie theater with an audience that's paid to see my movie, and if they're engaged, and I work really hard to make movies that keep the audiences engaged. I really try to make it hard for someone to leave to go to the bathroom. And that's such a special experience. And I'm glad that it appears that future generation of filmmakers will be able to also have that experience.
Well, that's a great summary. Thank you so much, Doug Liman, for being our guest today on the Movie Business Podcast. Thank you, Doug.
Well, thanks, Jason. And as you know, a lot of the lessons learned started with you at USC, so thank you.